Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the alarm started screaming. He jumped up from his chair and ran to the main control room of Liberty Point, the orbital defense station that watched over Earth from high above. The coffee cup fell to the floor and broke, but Jake did not care about that now. "What's happening?" Jake asked his crew as he reached the control panels. Red lights were flashing everywhere, and the computers were making loud beeping sounds. "Sir, we have massive objects coming into our space," said Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez, who was looking at the radar screen with wide eyes. "They're huge, bigger than anything we've ever seen before." Jake looked at the main screen and felt his heart stop. 3 enormous ships were moving slowly toward Earth. They were silver and smooth, like giant teardrops floating in the darkness of space. Each ship was at least 5 miles long and 2 miles wide. Nothing on Earth had ever built anything that big. "How many are there?" Jake asked, trying to keep his voice calm even though his hands were shaking. "We count 12 ships total?" "Sir," Amy said. "They're spreading out around Earth, taking positions over our major cities." Jake grabbed the radio and called Earth Defense Command. "Admiral Carter, this is Liberty Point. We have a situation up here." Admiral Lisa Carter's voice came through the radio, sounding tense. "We see them, Jake. Every defense station on the planet is reporting the same thing. We're trying to figure out what they want." The alien ships moved into position over New York, London, Tokyo, and other big cities around the world. They just floated there, not attacking, not moving much at all. It was like they were waiting for something. Then the message came. All the radios and televisions on Earth suddenly started playing the same voice. It was deep and calm, speaking perfect English with no accent at all. "People of Earth, we are the Valdari Protectorate. We have come to shield your world from the darkness that approaches. Prepare your defenses and trust in our protection." Jake stared at the radio in shock. The aliens were talking to them, and they sounded friendly. But something about the whole situation made him feel nervous. "Did they just say they're here to protect us?" Amy asked, looking confused. "That's what it sounded like," Jake replied. "But protect us from what?" Down on Earth, Admiral Lisa Carter was having the same thoughts. She was sitting in the underground command center in Colorado, watching dozens of screens that showed the alien ships from different angles. Her team of officers and scientists were all talking at once, trying to understand what was happening. "Admiral, we're getting more messages from the aliens," said Colonel Steve Brooks, walking up to her desk with a folder full of papers. "They want to talk to our leaders. What do they want to talk about?" Lisa asked. "They keep saying they're here to protect us from something called the Devourers. They won't say much more than that." Dr. Ben Parker, a scientist who studied alien life, was listening to the conversation. He had been called to the command center as soon as the ships appeared. "Admiral, this doesn't make sense. Why would aliens travel across space just to protect us? What do they get out of it?" "That's exactly what I'm wondering," Lisa said. "Set up the meeting. I want to hear what they have to say." 2 hours later, the main screen in the command center lit up with the image of an alien. The creature looked somewhat like a human, but taller and thinner. Its skin was pale blue, and it had large dark eyes. It wore what looked like a military uniform with many symbols and decorations. "I am Commander Zifahai of the Valdari Protectorate," the alien said in that same calm voice they had heard before. "We have been watching your world for some time, and we bring urgent news. I am Admiral Lisa Carter of Earth Defense Command." Lisa replied, trying to sound strong and confident. "You say you're here to protect us from what?" The alien's face became very serious. "The Devourers are coming. They are an ancient race that travels from star to star, consuming entire worlds. They destroy everything in their path, leaving nothing but empty space behind them." The command center became very quiet. Everyone was listening carefully to every word. "They have destroyed thousands of civilizations," Commander Zefihai continued. "Entire species wiped out in a matter of days. Your world lies directly in their path, and they will be here soon." Dr. Ben Parker stepped forward. "Why should we trust you? How do we know you're telling the truth?" The alien touched something on his uniform, and the screen changed to show horrible images of destroyed planets. Cities burning, people running in panic, worlds that looked like they had been torn apart by some terrible force. "This is what the Devourers do," HFY said. "This is what will happen to Earth if you do not accept our protection." Lisa felt sick looking at the images, but she forced herself to stay focused. "What kind of protection are you offering?" "Our ships will create a defensive barrier around your world," the alien explained. "Our weapons and shields are far more advanced than anything your people have built. We can keep the Devourers away, but only if you cooperate with us completely." "What does that mean, cooperate completely?" Colonel Steve Brooks asked. "You must share all information about your military capabilities, your population centers, and your planet's resources. We need to know everything about Earth to protect it properly." Something about this request made Lisa uncomfortable, but she did not want to seem rude to beings who claimed they were trying to help. "We'll need time to discuss this with our world leaders." "Time is something you do not have much of," HFY said. "The Devourers could arrive at any moment. Every day you delay makes your world more vulnerable." After the conversation ended, Lisa gathered her top officers and scientists in a meeting room. Everyone looked worried and confused. "What do you all think?" Lisa asked. "I don't like it," said Colonel Steve Brooks. "They're asking for too much information. That's exactly what an enemy would want to know before attacking us." "But what if they're telling the truth?" asked Dr. Ben Parker. "What if they're really? Are these Devourers coming, and we refuse help from the only people who can stop them?" Meanwhile, up on Liberty Point, Jake Morrison was watching the alien ships through his telescope. They had moved closer to Earth's atmosphere, and he could see them more clearly now. The ships were beautiful in a way, but they also looked very dangerous. He could see weapon ports along their sides and strange energy fields surrounding them. Amy Rodriguez was working at her computer, trying to scan the alien ships with their sensors. "Captain, I'm getting some strange readings. These ships are much more active than they're letting on." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "Well, they say they're just protecting us, but their sensors are scanning everything. They're mapping our cities, our military bases, even our communication networks. It's like they're studying us." Jake felt that nervous feeling in his stomach get stronger. "Keep monitoring them. Record everything they do. I want to know exactly what these protectors are really up to." On the dark side of the moon, Amy Rodriguez had been assigned to check on the lunar mining station. It was supposed to be a routine inspection, but when she arrived, she found something that made her heart race. The Valdari had been there first. Machines were digging into the moon's surface, pulling out rare metals and loading them onto small ships. The mining operation was massive, much bigger than anything humans had ever attempted. And the aliens had not asked permission for any of it. Amy quickly took pictures and measurements before heading back to report what she had found. Something was very wrong with the Valdari's story, and she had a feeling that Earth was in more danger than anyone realized. The alien protectors had arrived. But as the first day ended, more and more humans were starting to wonder if these beings were really here to help. Why did everything they did seem so suspicious? 2 weeks had passed since the Valdari ships first appeared over Earth. The alien protectors had settled into their positions around the planet, their massive vessels casting shadows over the cities below. Most people on Earth were starting to get used to seeing the huge ships in the sky, but some were beginning to ask uncomfortable questions. Colonel Steve Brooks was one of those people. He sat in his office deep underground, looking at photographs and reports that his secret team had gathered. The more he learned about the Valdari, the less he trusted them. "Show me what you found yesterday," Steve said to his assistant, Lieutenant. Don Miller. Don spread several photographs across the desk. These pictures were taken near the Valdari landing site in Nevada. "Look at these structures they're building." Steve picked up the photos and studied them carefully. The Valdari had told everyone they were only setting up communication equipment, but these buildings looked like something else entirely. They were long and rectangular, with high walls and no windows. They looked more like prisons than communication centers. "What do you think they're for?" Steve asked. "We don't know yet, sir. But we've noticed trucks going in and out of these buildings at night. The trucks are covered, so we can't see what they're carrying." Steve felt a cold feeling in his chest. "Keep watching them. I want to know everything they're doing." Across the country, Dr. Helen Martinez was having her own concerns about the Valdari. She was Earth's best physicist, and she had been studying the alien technology for 2 weeks. What she had discovered made her very worried. Helen was working late in her laboratory when she made a breakthrough. She had been trying to understand how the Valdari shields worked, the ones they claimed were protecting Earth cities. But when she finally figured out how they operated, she realized they were not shields at all. "No, no, no," Helen whispered to herself as she looked at her computer screen. "This can't be right. The devices the Valdari had placed over the cities were not protecting anything. They were scanning everything. Every building, every person, every vehicle that moved through the city was being recorded and analyzed. The aliens were making a complete map of human civilization." Helen picked up her phone and called Admiral Carter. "Lisa, we need to talk right now." "What's wrong, Helen?" Lisa asked. She could hear the fear in her friend's voice. "The Valdari shields are not shields. They're scanning devices. They're mapping everything about our cities, our people, our entire way of life." Lisa was quiet for a moment. "Are you sure?" "I'm positive. I've been studying their technology for weeks. These devices are designed to gather information, not to provide protection." At the same time, Captain Jake Morrison was having his own problems with the Valdari. He was still stationed on Liberty Point, watching the alien ships from space. Every day, he noticed that the ships were moving a little bit closer to Earth. "Amy, look at this," Jake said, calling Lieutenant Rodriguez over to his monitoring station. Amy looked at the screen, which showed the positions of all the Valdari ships. "They're definitely moving closer. Why would they do that if they're supposed to be protecting us from something coming from deep space?" "That's exactly what I'm wondering," Jake replied. "If the Devourers are coming from outside our solar system, wouldn't the Valdari want to stay farther out to intercept them?" Amy nodded. "It doesn't make sense unless ... unless what?" "Unless they're not really here to protect us from anyone else. Unless they're preparing to do something to us." Jake felt his heart beating faster. "Keep tracking their movements. If they get much closer, we'll need to warn Earth Defense Command." Down on Earth, communications specialist Tony Garcia was working the night shift at the main listening post in Alaska. His job was to monitor all the radio signals going in and out of Earth's atmosphere. Most nights, it was boring work, but tonight was different. Tony was drinking coffee and listening to the usual chatter when he heard something strange. It was a signal coming from one of the Valdari ships, but it was not in English. It was in the alien's own language, and it was encoded. "That's weird," Tony said to himself. "Why would they be sending coded messages if they're here to help us?" Tony was good with computers and codes. He had been breaking secret messages since he was a teenager. He recorded the Valdari signal and started working on decoding it. It took him 3 hours, but finally, he broke through their encryption. What he read made his blood turn cold. The message was from Commander HFY to another Valdari leader. It said, "Harvest quota assessment complete. Human population suitable. For processing, genetic diversity acceptable. Recommend proceeding to Phase 2 collection protocols. Specimen gathering can begin within 7 days." Tony read the message again, hoping he had made a mistake. But the words were clear. The Valdari were not protectors. They were hunters, and humans were their prey. Tony immediately called Admiral Carter. "Admiral, this is Tony Garcia at the Alaska listening post. I've intercepted a Valdari message, and you need to hear this right away." When Tony told Lisa what he had discovered, she felt sick. "Are you absolutely certain about this translation?" "Yes, ma'am. I've checked it 3 times. The Valdari are planning to harvest us. They're not here to protect us from the Devourers. They are the Devourers." Lisa called an emergency meeting of her top officers. Within 2 hours, Colonel Steve Brooks, Dr. Helen Martinez, Captain Jake Morrison, and several other key personnel were gathered in the secure conference room. "We have a problem," Lisa began. "The Valdari are not what they claim to be." She told them about Tony's intercepted message, Helen's discovery about the scanning devices, and Steve's photographs of the mysterious buildings. When she finished, the room was completely silent. "So what you're saying is that we've been invaded by aliens who convinced us to let them invade us," Steve said slowly. "That's exactly what I'm saying," Lisa replied. Helen Martinez spoke up. "It's actually a brilliant strategy. Instead of fighting us, they made us think they were here to help. We've been cooperating with our own conquest." "But what about the Devourers?" asked Captain Morrison. "What about all those destroyed planets they showed us?" "I think those were planets they destroyed themselves," Lisa said. "They probably use the same trick everywhere they go. They show up claiming to be protectors, gain the trust of the local population, and then harvest them." Colonel Brooks leaned forward. "So what do we do now?" "We can't fight them. Their technology is way more advanced than ours." "Maybe we can't fight them directly," Lisa said. "But we're not helpless. We've been studying their technology for 2 weeks. We know some of their weaknesses." Dr. Martinez nodded. "I've been analyzing their shield systems. They're powerful, but they operate on a very specific frequency. If we could generate the right kind of electromagnetic pulse, we might be able to disrupt them." "How long would that take?" Lisa asked. "I don't know. Maybe a few days, maybe a week. But we'd need to work in complete secrecy. If the Valdari suspect we know the truth, they might accelerate their timeline." Captain Morrison raised his hand. "What about the other defense stations? Liberty Point isn't the only one watching these ships. We could coordinate with the other stations." "Good idea," Lisa said. "But we need to be very careful about how we communicate. We have to assume the Valdari are monitoring everything." Over the next few days, the small group of humans worked secretly to prepare for what was coming. Dr. Martinez worked day and night to develop a weapon that could penetrate the Valdari shields. Colonel Brooks gathered intelligence on all the Valdari positions and activities. Captain Morrison coordinated with other space stations to plan a simultaneous attack, but as they worked, they noticed that the Valdari were becoming more active. More trucks were seen entering and leaving the mysterious buildings. The alien ships were moving even closer to Earth's surface, and people were starting to disappear. At first, it was just a few people from remote areas. Hikers who went into the mountains and never came back. Farmers who went to check on their livestock and vanished. The disappearances were reported, but no one connected them to the Valdari. But Tony Garcia was still monitoring the alien communications, and he was starting to understand what was happening. "They're taking people," Tony told Admiral Carter during one of their secret meetings. "The messages I'm intercepting talk about specimen collection and biological sampling. They're kidnapping humans for some kind of experiments." Lisa felt anger building inside her. "How many people have they taken?" "I don't know for sure, but based on their communications, it could be hundreds." "We need to move faster," Lisa said. "Helen, how much more time do you need?" "Give me 2 more days," Dr. Martinez replied. "I think I can have a working prototype by then." But even as they rushed to prepare their defense, the Valdari were preparing something too. Commander Zephyhi was sending new messages to his fleet, and Tony Garcia was working around the clock to decode them. The latest message was the most frightening. Yet, Phase 2 collection complete? Recommend proceeding to Phase 3. Begin mass processing of population centers. Estimated completion time, 72 hours. Earth had 3 days before the Valdari revealed their true intentions. 3 days to prepare for a war that most humans did not even know was coming. The aliens had come to Earth claiming to be protectors. Admiral Lisa Carter stood in front of the huge screen in the Global Defense Council room. Leaders from every country on Earth were watching her through video links. Their faces showed fear, anger, and confusion. Lisa took a deep breath and began to speak. 3 days ago, we discovered the truth about the Valdari, Lisa said. They are not here to protect us. They are here to harvest us like crops. The President of the United States leaned forward in his chair. "Admiral, are you absolutely certain about this?" "Yes, sir. We have intercepted their communications, analyzed their technology, and documented their activities. The Valdari have been kidnapping our people and preparing to process our entire population." The Prime Minister of England spoke next. "What do you mean by process?" Dr. Helen Martinez stepped forward. "Based on what we've learned, the Valdari treat intelligent species like resources to be collected. They take some people for experiments, some for slave labor, and eliminate the rest. They've done this to dozens of worlds." Angry voices filled the room as world leaders began talking at once. Lisa raised her hand for silence. "We don't have time for debate," she said. "According to their latest communications, the Valdari plan to begin mass collection operations in less than 48 hours. We need to act now." The Russian president asked the question everyone was thinking. How can we fight them? Their technology is far more advanced than ours. "We have a plan," Lisa said. She nodded to Dr. Martinez, who began explaining what they had discovered. "The Valdari shields and weapons all operate on the same basic frequency," Helen said. "If we can generate a powerful enough electromagnetic pulse on that exact frequency, we can disable their entire fleet simultaneously." "How do we generate that kind of pulse?" asked the Chinese premier. "We've been working on that," Helen replied. "We can modify our nuclear power plants and military satellites to create the pulse we need. But it has to be perfectly coordinated. Every facility on Earth must activate at exactly the same moment." Colonel Steve Brooks stood up. "We've also been preparing ground forces. The moment their shields go down, we need to attack every Valdari position on the planet. We can't give them time to recover." Captain Jake Morrison joined the conversation from Liberty Point. "The space stations are ready too. We've been secretly modifying our weapons to target the Valdari ships. When their shields fail, we'll have about 10 minutes to destroy as many ships as possible before they can adapt." The room was quiet as the world leaders considered the plan. Finally, the president spoke. "What are our chances of success?" Lisa looked around the room. "Honestly, we don't know. This has never been tried before. But if we don't try, humanity will be extinct within a week." One by one, each world leader agreed to the plan. They would coordinate the largest military operation in human history, and they would do it in complete secrecy. Over the next 24 hours, preparations began around the world. Nuclear power plant operators received coded instructions to modify their systems. Military commanders quietly moved their forces into position near Valdari installations. Satellite technicians worked around the clock to reprogram communications. METWORKS Dr. Ben Parker was working with a team of scientists at the secret laboratory in Nevada. They had been studying captured Valdari technology, trying to understand how it worked. "I think I've figured out something important," Ben said to his team. "The Valdari have been testing biological weapons on the people they kidnapped." "What kind of biological weapons?" asked Dr. Susan Clark, one of Ben's assistants. "Chemicals that make humans passive and obedient. They've been developing a way to control our minds without having to use force." This news made the situation even more urgent. If the Valdari could control human minds, resistance would become impossible. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez was leading a secret mission on the dark side of the moon. She and her team had discovered that the Valdari were not just mining rare metals, they were building something. "Captain Morrison, you need to see this," Amy said over the radio. Jake could see the images Amy was sending from the lunar surface. The Valdari had constructed enormous factories that were producing some kind of mechanical devices. "What are those things?" Jake asked. "We think they're robots," Amy replied. "Thousands of them, maybe millions. They look like they're designed for capturing and transporting large numbers of people." This discovery made everyone realize how carefully the Valdari had planned their attack. They had not just come to Earth to harvest humans. They had been preparing for months, maybe years, building the equipment they would need to process the entire human population. Tony Garcia, was still monitoring Valdari communications from his listening post in Alaska. The messages he was intercepting were becoming more frequent and more urgent. "Admiral, they're getting ready to start," Tony reported. "I'm hearing orders to begin deployment of collection units. They're talking about processing centers in major cities. How much time do we have?" Lisa asked. "Based on their timeline, maybe 18 hours. Lisa made the decision. "Send the signal to all units. Operation Liberation begins in 12 hours. Around the world, humans began their final preparations. In underground bunkers, technicians made last-minute adjustments to electromagnetic pulse generators. On military bases, soldiers loaded their weapons and reviewed their targets. In space, crews on defense stations powered up weapons that had never been tested in combat. Dr. Helen Martinez was in the main control room at the Colorado Command Center. Banks of computers surrounded her, all connected to power plants and satellite networks around the globe. In a few hours, she would send the signal that would either save humanity or doom it. "Are you sure this will work?" asked Colonel Brooks, who was standing beside her. "The mathematics are correct," Helen replied, "but we've never tested it on this scale. We're essentially turning the entire planet into one giant weapon." Captain Jake Morrison was on Liberty Point, coordinating with defense stations around Earth. His screen showed the positions of every Valdari ship, and he had weapons locked onto each target. "All stations report ready," Jake announced over the radio. "We have confirmation from Luna Base, Mars Station, and all orbital platforms." Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez had returned from the moon and was now commanding a team of fighters on Luna Base. They had powerful weapons that could reach Earth from the moon's surface. "Lunar weapons are charged and targeted," Amy reported. "We're ready to support the attack." As the final hours ticked away, humans around the world held their breath. Most people on Earth had no idea what was about to happen. They went to sleep, thinking the Valdari were still their protectors. But in secret facilities and hidden bunkers, the real protectors of Earth were making their final preparations. Commander Zephyhi was in his command ship, floating above New York City. He was reviewing the plans for what the Valdari called the Great Harvest. In a few hours, his forces would begin collecting humans from every major city on the planet. "Status report," Zephyhi commanded. "All collection units are in position," replied his second-in-command. "Processing centers are operational. We estimate complete harvest within 72 hours. "Excellent. The humans have been very cooperative. This will be one of our easiest conquests." Zephyhi had no idea that, at that very moment, thousands of humans were preparing to destroy his entire fleet. The countdown began. Around the world, operators sat at their controls, waiting for the signal. On space stations, weapon systems hummed with power. In military bases, soldiers checked their weapons one final time. Dr. Helen Martinez looked at the clock on her computer screen. In 60 seconds, she would press the button that would change everything. "All stations, this is Earth Defense Command," Lisa announced over the global communication network. "Operation Liberation begins in 30 seconds. Helen placed her finger over the activation button. Around the world, dozens of other operators did the same thing. 10 seconds, Lisa announced. Jake Morrison gripped the controls of his weapon. Systems. Amy Rodriguez powered up the lunar cannons. Tony Garcia recorded everything so the world would know what really happened. 5 through 2 1. Helen pressed the button. Around the world, nuclear power plants released their energy in a coordinated electromagnetic pulse. Military satellites added their power to the signal. The combined energy of Earth's entire electrical grid focused into one massive wave that swept across the planet and into space. The wave hit the Valdari ships at exactly the same moment. Their shields flickered and died. Their weapons went offline. Their engines stopped working. For the first time since they arrived at Earth, the Valdari were vulnerable. And humanity was ready to fight back. The electromagnetic pulse hit the Valdari ships like a giant invisible hammer. All around Earth, the massive alien vessels suddenly went dark. Their blue energy shields disappeared. Their weapon systems stopped glowing. For the first time since they arrived, the Valdari ships looked powerless. Captain Jake Morrison watched from Liberty Point as the nearest Valdari ship began to fall toward Earth. Smoke was pouring from its hull, and pieces of metal were breaking off and floating away into space. "All stations, this is Liberty Point," Jake announced over the radio. "The pulse worked. Their shields are down. Begin Phase 2. Around the world, every human weapon that could reach the alien ships opened fire at the same time. Missiles launched from military bases. Laser cannons fired from space stations. Nuclear submarines surfaced and shot their rockets toward the ships. Floating above major cities, the sky filled with explosions as human weapons struck the defenseless Valdari vessels. Ships that had seemed invincible just minutes before were now burning and crashing toward the ground. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez was on Luna Base, operating the most powerful weapons humanity had ever built. The lunar cannons could fire projectiles at incredible speed across the distance between the moon and Earth. "Target locked on the command ship over New York," Amy announced. Firing main cannon. A beam of pure energy shot from the moon toward Earth. It struck Commander Zephyhaya's ship directly in the center. The massive vessel split in half, both pieces tumbling toward the Atlantic Ocean in a shower of fire and debris, but some Valdari ships were still fighting back. Even with their main systems damaged, they had backup weapons that were starting to come online. Green energy beams shot from several ships toward human cities. Admiral Lisa Carter was in the command center, watching the battle on dozens of screens. She could see that some Valdari ships were beginning to recover from the electromagnetic pulse. "All units, press the attack," Lisa ordered. "Don't give them time to repair their systems." Colonel Steve Brooks was leading ground forces against the Valdari installations on Earth. His soldiers had surrounded the mysterious buildings the aliens had constructed, and they were preparing to attack. "Move in!" Steve shouted to his troops. "Capture any aliens you can find, but don't take any chances." The soldiers burst through the doors of the Valdari buildings and found horrors inside. Hundreds of humans were trapped in small cells, looking weak and confused. Many of them had strange marks on their arms where the aliens had been conducting experiments. "Get medical teams in here now," Steve ordered. "We need to help these people." But the worst discovery was in the basement. Steve found laboratories where the Valdari had been testing their mind control chemicals on human prisoners. The aliens had been perfecting ways to make humans obedient and passive. Meanwhile, the space battle was reaching its climax. Most of the Valdari ships were either destroyed or badly damaged, but Commander Zephyhai had managed to escape from his falling command ship in a smaller vessel. The alien commander was trying to flee Earth when Captain Morrison intercepted him. "Valdari ship, this is Captain Morrison of Earth Defense. You're not going anywhere." Zephyhia's voice came over the radio, and for the first time he sounded afraid instead of confident. "This is impossible," the alien said. "Your species lacks the technology to defeat us. You should have accepted our protection like all the others." Jake felt anger building inside him. "Protection? Is that what you call kidnapping our people and planning to harvest our entire planet?" "You do not understand," Zephyhai replied. "We were saving you from a fate worse than death. The universe is full of dangers you cannot imagine. The only danger we needed protection from was you," Jake said. He fired his weapons. As Zephyhia's ship exploded in a ball of fire, the last Valdari ship was destroyed. Admiral Carter opened a communication channel that would reach every human on Earth and every Valdari vessel that might still be listening. "This is Admiral Lisa Carter of Earth Defense Command," she announced. "To any Valdari forces that can hear this message, your invasion has failed. Your ships are destroyed and your plans have been exposed." But Lisa was not finished. She had something much more important to say. "We know what you are. We know what you've done to other worlds. But you made one critical mistake. You underestimated humanity. The communication systems around Earth were broadcasting Lisa's message to the entire galaxy. Every alien civilization within 100 light years would hear what she had to say. Dr. Helen Martinez joined the broadcast. You told us about the Devourers, the ancient enemy that destroys worlds. But you didn't tell us that you are the Devourers. You're the ones who have been traveling from star to star, harvesting intelligent species. The truth was finally being revealed to the universe. The Valdari were not protectors. They were the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. Captain Morrison added his own message to the broadcast. We've been monitoring your activities across 17 star systems for the past decade. We know about the Kepler colonies you protected into extinction. We know about the Proxima settlements you harvested. This revelation shocked everyone who was listening. Humanity had known about the Valdari. Long before they arrived at Earth, the aliens had walked into a trap. Dr. Ben Parker stepped forward to deliver the most devastating news of all. We've been preparing for you since before you even knew Earth existed. When you spend decades watching the stars and listening to deep space communications, you learn things. We heard the death screams of the civilizations you destroyed. The captured Valdari aliens in the ground installations were listening to this broadcast, and their faces showed complete shock. They had never encountered a species that had figured out their deception before they arrived, but humanity had one more surprise for the galaxy. Oh, and those Devourers you warned us about? Jake Morrison said with satisfaction in his voice. We killed them 3 years ago when they tried to scout our system. Turns out, directed nuclear explosions work really well in space. This was the biggest revelation of all. The real Devourers, the ancient enemy that the Valdari claimed to be protecting worlds from, had actually been destroyed by humans years earlier. Earth's deep space monitoring systems had detected them approaching, and human forces had intercepted and eliminated them before they could reach the inner solar system. The Valdari had been using the threat of the Devourers to trick other civilizations into accepting their protection. But the Devourers were already dead, killed by the very species the Valdari thought would be easy prey. Around the world, humans were celebrating in the streets. The news of their victory was spreading quickly, and people were finally learning the truth about their supposed protectors. In the command center, Tony Garcia was monitoring communications from across the galaxy. Other alien civilizations were responding to Earth's broadcast, and their messages were full of amazement and hope. Admiral, we're getting messages from dozens of species, Tony reported. They're saying the Valdari have been controlling their worlds for years. Some of them want to know how we defeated them. Send them our technical data, Lisa ordered. Every species in the galaxy deserves to be free from the Valdari. Dr. Martinez was already working on a comprehensive report that would explain exactly how humanity had detected, analyzed, and defeated the Valdari invasion. This information would be shared with every civilization that wanted it. But even as they celebrated their victory, the humans knew their work was not finished. The Valdari had been operating across the galaxy for centuries, and there were probably other worlds still under their control. Colonel Brooks returned from the Valdari installations with hundreds of freed human prisoners and several captured aliens. The prisoners needed medical attention, but they were alive and could tell their stories of what the Valdari had planned. Admiral, the captured Valdari are asking to speak with you, Steve reported. They say they have information about other operations. Lisa agreed to meet with the alien prisoners. They were held in a secure facility, and they looked very different from the confident beings who had first contacted Earth. They seemed frightened and defeated. You have won this battle, one of the Valdari said. But you do not understand the full scope of our operations. There are hundreds of our ships spread across the galaxy. They will come for revenge. Let them come, Lisa replied. We'll be ready for them too. And next time, we won't be alone. Every species you've enslaved will be fighting alongside us. The Valdari alien looked shocked. Impossible. The lesser species do not have the capability to coordinate such resistance. That's where you're wrong, Lisa said with a smile. You taught us something very important today. When someone claims to be your protector but demands your complete submission, they're not trying to help you. They're trying to control you. As the day ended, Earth began the process of rebuilding and preparing for whatever might come next. The Valdari ships were being salvaged for their technology. The freed prisoners were being cared for, and plans were being made to help other worlds break free from Valdari control. Humanity had passed its first test as a spacefaring civilization. They had faced a threat that had destroyed countless other species, and they had not just survived. They had won. 6 months had passed since the day humanity defeated the Valdari invasion. Earth looked very different now. The alien ships that had once hung over major cities were gone, either destroyed or captured. In their place, new human ships flew through. The skies, built using technology learned from studying Valdari equipment, Colonel Steve Brooks stood on the deck of the UES Freedom, the first ship in Earth's new space fleet. He was no longer just a colonel. Now he commanded the Interstellar Protection Corps, a force dedicated to helping other worlds break free from false protectors. "Captain Rodriguez, set course for the Tau Ceti system," Steve ordered. "We received a distress signal from there yesterday." Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez, now captain of her own ship, smiled as she programmed the navigation computer. "Course laid in, sir. We should arrive in 3 days." The ship jumped into faster-than-light travel, something that had been impossible for humans just months earlier. But studying captured Valdari technology had taught Earth scientists many new things about space travel and energy manipulation. Dr. Helen Martinez was now the head of the Xenotechnology Division, a new department responsible for making sure humanity used alien technology wisely. She had learned from the Valdari's mistakes. Advanced technology without wisdom led to becoming a predator instead of a protector. "Steve, I've finished analyzing the data from our last mission," Helen said, joining him on the bridge. "The hegemony ships we encountered are definitely using the same tactics as the Valdari. They show up claiming to protect worlds from an ancient threat, gain the local population's trust, then begin harvesting operations." "How many worlds do they control?" Steve asked. "At least 20 that we know of, maybe more. But the good news is that some of the species are starting to resist. Our broadcasts about the Valdari defeat have been spreading across the galaxy." Steve nodded. The plan was working. When Earth had defeated the Valdari, they had not kept the victory secret. Instead, they had broadcast the entire story across known space. Every civilization that could receive radio signals had heard about how humanity had exposed and defeated their false protectors. The message had inspired hope in species that had given up fighting. If humans could defeat the Valdari, maybe they could defeat other predator races too. Captain Jake Morrison was back on Earth, commanding the rebuilt orbital defense network. The new defense stations were much more powerful than the old ones, equipped with weapons and sensors that could detect threats from much farther away. "Admiral Carter, we're receiving a transmission from the Vega system," Jake reported. "It's the same message we've been getting from other worlds." Admiral Lisa Carter looked at the communication screen. The message was from a species called the Xanthari, and they looked like tall, thin beings with blue skin and large eyes. Their leader was speaking in their own language, but Earth computers could now translate most alien languages. "Unknown vessels approaching our system claiming to offer protection. They call themselves the Hegemony. Please advise." Lisa had heard this same message from dozens of worlds over the past 6 months. Species across the galaxy were learning to be suspicious of uninvited protectors, and they were calling Earth for help. "Jake, send them our standard response," Lisa ordered. Jake opened the communication channel and sent back a message that had become humanity's promise to the galaxy. Message received. Earth Defense Fleet en route. Estimated arrival, 6 days. Hang tight, real protectors are coming. This was how humanity had learned to tell the difference between real protectors and false ones. Real protectors did not demand submission. They did not ask for complete information about your world's resources and population. They did not insist that you trust them completely. Most importantly, real protectors left when the danger was over. Dr. Ben Parker was leading a research team on one of the outer space stations. They were studying the long-term effects of Valdari mind control chemicals on the humans who had been kidnapped. The work was difficult, but they were making progress in helping the victims recover. "Admiral, we've made an important discovery," Ben reported during a video conference. "The Valdari chemicals don't just make people passive, they also make them forget things." Many of the rescued prisoners are starting to remember details about other Valdari operations. "What kind of details?" Lisa asked. "Locations of secret bases, names of other predator species working with the Valdari, and most importantly, the locations of worlds that are still under Valdari control." This information was exactly what the Interstellar Protection Corps needed. Steve Brooks and his fleet had been searching for Valdari-controlled worlds, but space was huge and finding them took time. Now they had a map. The use freedom dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Tau Ceti. Captain Rodriguez immediately began scanning the system for signs of trouble. "I'm detecting 12 large ships in orbit around the fourth planet," Amy reported. They matched the design profiles of hegemony vessels. "And the planet?" Steve asked. "The surface shows signs of a large civilization, but I'm not detecting much communication traffic." That's usually a bad sign. Steve knew what that meant. The hegemony had probably already begun their control operations on the planet below. The local population was either being harvested or had been made passive through chemical treatment. "Begin standard liberation protocol," Steve ordered. "Send the message to all hegemony ships." Amy opened the communication channel to the alien fleet. The message she sent was one that humanity had been broadcasting throughout the galaxy for months. "Hegemony vessels, this is Captain Rodriguez of the Earth Defense Fleet. You are ordered to cease all operations and leave this system immediately. The people of this world are under the protection of the Galactic Liberation Alliance." The response came quickly from the hegemony command ship. The alien voice sounded angry and confused. "Earth vessel, you have no authority in this system. We are providing protection to the local population against cosmic threats. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Steve smiled. It was exactly the same lie the Valdari had told. "Fire the pulse cannon, Amy. Let's show them what happens to false protectors." The UES Freedom fired a focused electromagnetic pulse at the nearest hegemony ship. The alien vessel's shields collapsed instantly, and its weapons went offline. Earth had learned how to defeat Valdari technology, and now they could use that knowledge against other predator species. "All hegemony ships, this is your final warning," Amy announced. "Leave now, or we will disable your entire fleet." Instead of leaving, the hegemony ships tried to fight back. But their technology was similar to Valdari equipment, and humanity had been preparing for this exact situation. Within 20 minutes, the entire hegemony fleet was either destroyed or disabled. Steve led a team down to the planet's surface to meet with the local population. The beings there looked like large insects with intelligent eyes and complex communication patterns. They had been under hegemony control for over a year, and many of them were still affected by mind control chemicals. "We are here to help you," Steve told their leaders through a translation device. "The hegemony were not protecting you. They were preparing to harvest your people and your resources." It took time to convince the local population that humans were different from their previous protectors, but eventually the truth became clear. The hegemony had been planning the same kind of operation the Valdari had attempted on Earth. As the liberation of the Tau Ceti system was completed, similar operations were happening across the galaxy. Captain Morrison received reports from other Earth fleets that had successfully driven off predator species from dozens of worlds. "Admiral, we're getting status reports from all active fleets," Jake announced. "Operation Free Galaxy is showing excellent results. We've liberated 47 worlds in the past month alone." Lisa felt proud of what humanity had accomplished, but she also felt the weight of responsibility. Earth had become the leader of a growing alliance of free worlds, and that meant they had to be careful not to become the same kind of threat they had defeated. "Jake, make sure our fleet commanders understand the rules of engagement," Lisa said. We help worlds that ask for help, and we leave when the job is done. We don't occupy. We don't demand tribute. We don't control. This was the most important lesson humanity had learned from fighting the Valdari. Power could corrupt even those who started with good intentions. The only way to remain true protectors was to never forget that protection was a service, not a right to rule. Tony Garcia, still monitoring communications from his station in Alaska, was tracking the effects of Earth's liberation campaigns. The results were encouraging. "Admiral, I'm receiving messages from liberated worlds all across the galaxy," Tony reported. "Many of them are forming their own defense forces and joining the Liberation Alliance. We're not fighting this war alone anymore." 6 months after the Valdari invasion, humanity had learned its true place in the universe. They were not the strongest species, or the most advanced, or the oldest. But they had something that many other species lacked: the wisdom to recognize predators disguised as protectors. As Admiral Carter prepared for another day of coordinating liberation operations, she received a message that made her smile. It was from the first world they had liberated after defeating the Valdari.